the traditional owners of the lands and waters of the Bayside area where we are. We recognise that deep knowledge of natural systems and seasons have enabled them to nurture this environment for many generations. We respectfully acknowledge their elders, past, present and emerging. We also recognise the traditional custodians of the lands and waters across Australia and the world, wherever today's participants are situated. We pledge to care for and protect the delicate and diverse life of our precious marine and coastal environments.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tony.
Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So I'll just introduce Dr. Kate Robb. She's the founding director and head of research at the Marine Mammal Foundation, with over 17 years' experience researching dolphins across southern Australia. Kate achieved a Bachelor of Science in Honours with a double major in freshwater and marine ecology and zoology, and then a Doctor of Philosophy in genetics. Her research led to the formal description and naming of a new Australian species of dolphin, the Burrunan dolphin, Tursiops australis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Yes. Kate is the former president of the Australian Marine Science Association, Victoria branch, a naturalist for expeditions to Antarctica, and an honorary fellow at Deakin, Curtin and Monash universities, all of those universities. As head of research at the Marine Mammal Foundation, Kate has instigated and supervised numerous applied marine mammal research projects, covering robust population modelling, population genetics, phylogeometrics, you can explain what that is, Kate, geospatial mapping, social structure and alliance, acoustics and toxicology. Kate has numerous peer-reviewed scientific publications aimed at informing positive conservation and management outcomes of marine mammals. Kate's been involved with major media coverage from international agencies such as the BBC's Historic Channel, National Geographic, BBC The World, NBC USA, Australian agencies such as The Age, The Australian, Herald Sun, major TV news networks, and also children's shows such as Totally Wild and Scope. A highlight of Dr. Kate's career was personally meeting Sir David Attenborough in 2013. Welcome, Kate.
Thanks, Virginia. That's a really nice introduction, and thank you for having me along on this Sunday. I think it's great. We've got so many people participating, and I think one of the, I don't know, the upsides of COVID is that when it's super rainy and, you know, Antarctic blitz outside, it's nice to be able to join everybody from our own comfort and warmth of our own home. So I'll jump straight in. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that? Yep. So today I'm going to talk to you about poor Phillip's Burrunan dolphin and the discovery, and then, as promised in the thing, just a little bit more about our amazing marine mammals that we have here in our watery backyard. But first, a little bit about the Marine Mammal Foundation. So Marine Mammal Foundation's vision is to be a leading Australian marine mammal conservation organisation, protecting the marine environment through research, community engagement and education. So we conduct applied research on our marine mammals across the state and really raise awareness of conservation issues, apply our findings and also provide education and next generation opportunities. So we have an amazing group with our core team from headed up by myself as the founding director, through from PhD students that are affiliated with RMIT and all the way through to our education team with Matt, Amber, Jacinta and Hayley, and Caitlin, our amazing Lakes champion leader who heads up our citizen science program in Gippsland Lakes, and Bridget who heads up our volunteer. So we're a really great group of core team. You can see Matt there as the diamond in the rough, surrounded by a whole bunch of very talented and amazing females and women in science, which is really fantastic as well. Now, it's not just our core team. We have a fantastic group of volunteers that assist us in our programs. and university interns and students, you know, anywhere from jumping out on sea roads with Bella to our research initiatives, getting out there in the community at festivals, undertaking our citizen science programs and our youth marine champions programs. But our main focus obviously is the amazing marine mammals that we have in our watery backyard. And you can see here a number of different species that I'm going to be talking about throughout the presentation. And what we do is a number of different programs that Virginia introduced, from population modelling, social line structure, but importantly having a look at the threatening processes that impact on these amazing marine mammals through vessel interactions, toxicology, geospatial mapping. We work with a number of different organisations across the state. We also do the education program, so take those research findings actually into the classroom, so these students can get hands-on with actual real data. Out into the communities at festivals, you can see Bella Burrunan there, and our Burrunan. An important aspect of what we do is actually communicating this research. So, you know, a lot of times these amazing scientific publications, but they're all locked up behind, you know, a digital library with Authkate passwords. So we really believe in getting that message out into the community. We have a fantastic youth program, Marine Champions here. They get hands-on and learn science. You know, there's always those kids out there that just want to get more involved and learn more. So we've got this passionate group of Marine Champions. And of course, our amazing Lakes Champions, which are joined by a few today, which is really good, down in the Gippsland area, that undertake our citizen science program, Burrunan Watch, and also things like litter cleanups are an amazing part of the community. But our main focus, obviously, are the Burrunan dolphins, which Virginia introduced here, Tursiops australis. Now, these are the amazing dolphins that are found right out here in Port Phillip Bay. And as you can see, you know, their super inquisitive nature and playful behaviour is what obviously makes these dolphins so special to a lot of people in the area. And I'm going to be talking to you today about the actual discovery. But before I go into that, it's a really good idea to have a background a bit more about bottlenose dolphins in general, which all fall under Tursiops. So as it was introduced, the Burrunan dolphin is Tursiops australis, so fall within that Tursiops lineage. Now, historically, there's been upwards of 20 different Tursiops species described. Now, they vary in a number of quantitative and qualitative traits, and evolutionary fall into this really complex structure of multiple different species in the Tursiops Sucestonella dolphinus complex, which makes it quite a fascinating sort of species to be working on. Now, bottlenose dolphins are genetic and morphologically different between species, but sometimes those morphotypes are not consistent across the region. Here in Australia, historically, all bottlenose dolphins were classified as the common bottlenose dolphin, Tursiops truncatus. And this was blurred by the use of DNA in these genetic analysis. And we now know that we actually have both Tursiops truncatus, the common bottlenose, and Tursiops aduncus, the Indo-Pacific bottlenose, in our waters. Here in Southern Australia, where we're based, we had two distinct types, an inshore form that was smaller and an offshore type. And so my question when I first started my research was, well, what was that species that were found in the inshore regions like Port Phillip Bay and Gippsland Lakes? They're a bit of a mishmash between the two species. So it was sort of my question to find out which of those two species these guys that we find out in our watery backyards were. And as we already sort of cut to the chase, we now know that they're actually described as a separate species. So as a result of my PhD research, in 2011, following multiple forms of genetic and morphological data, I was able to formally describe and name our newest dolphin species, the Burrunan. So I'm going to take you a little bit on that journey this morning. The first indication that we had something quite different was looking at their DNA. And so from these samples, we're able to extract the DNA and look at the unique series of ATCs and Gs which make up the sequence, and also looking at microsatellite markers. Now, I'd love to travel all over the world and look at every kind of dolphin that I can find and collect samples from there. It's not sort of humanly or feasibly possible. So we can go on to this online database, which has the same sequences that we were looking at, and we can construct a phylogenetic tree. Now you can see here, there's a number of different dolphins and they all look a little bit different, but you can also see where they fall out on those branches. Now this is where the common bottlenose, the really big dark animal, is, and the Indo-Pacific bottlenose, that's where they fall out in that phylogenetic tree. So when I was looking at the DNA, I was expecting that the dolphins here in Port Phillip Bay and Gippsland Lakes would fall within that sort of area. But lo and behold, the Burrunan fell right outside of those two different Tursiops species. And it was actually separated by a number of different sister taxa, which looked nothing like bottlenose dolphins. So that was sort of the first key that there was something a little bit weird going on with these particular dolphins that we see. Now, during the species paper, I used 2 small fragments of mitochondrial DNA. We've now come so much further with our use of DNA that we can actually have a look at regions across the entire genome, not just these small fragments. And I've been able to continue my work having a look at the DNA. And here we have the same kind of phylogenetic tree, but this is using 11,840 SNPs or regions across the entire genome of these species. And you can see that the Burrunan there, denoted in the red, is falling out separately to the common bottlenose there, the darker one in the blue, and the Indo-Pacific in the green. Now, DNA, you can't describe a species just sort of based on the DNA. You have to have multiple lines of evidence. So I then went and had a look at the skull morphology, and I had a look at numerous or multiple different bottlenose dolphin species across all of Australia, and collected 40 plus measures from, you know, total length of the skull to the finest little details of their bone structure and tooth counts. Did a whole bunch of statistics on there, and as you can see again in the red, the Burrunan dolphin was falling out separately to the common bottlenose in the blue and the Indo-Pacific in the green. I then had a look at what they looked like on the outside, so the external morphology, and took measures across the entire dolphin, from the length of the rostrum, the height of the dorsal fin, total length, the fluke size, and also again did those statistics and found that the Burrunan was falling out separately from the common bottlenose. Now, the little stars in each of those were samples that I was able to collect both the DNA and the external morphology and the cranial morphology. So then I had a DNA fingerprint for all of those different samples, and that's how I could tell the difference between where they were falling out. Now, further to that, so the paper was published in 2011, and since then we've been able to look at multiple different regions, and there's upwards of 20 papers now that formally validate Tursiops australis, or the Burrunan dolphin, as a separate species, including this one that was looking at the entire mito genome. And again, we can see common bottlenose and Indo-Pacific bottlenose falling out there, and again separated by numerous different sister taxa were the Burrunan dolphin. And based on that and a whole lot of other different papers, the Burrunan has now been formally accepted and classified as a separate species across the globe. So as a bit of an overview, people would like to sort of have a look at what the differences are between them. So the Burrunan dolphin is around about 2.5 meters in length. It has this beautiful tricoloration pattern that you can see in this picture, and also in behind me here with this little guy swimming in the water. They have that stubby little rostrum, that patterning of grey, so the white that extends over the eye and down to the underside of the body, the midline of grey, the darker grey on the top. It has a falcate or curved dorsal fin, and that really stubby little nose or rostrum. Now, the naming of the Burrunan dolphin, to me, it's a really big deal. Not everybody gets to name a new dolphin species, much less one that was sort of living right under our noses here in Melbourne. And so I really wanted to have something that was reflective of its history and its uniqueness and its specialness to this area. Although my husband, who put up with me during my PhD, thought it should be called Howie's dolphin because he had to deal with me for all of those years. I actually worked with the Aboriginal elders of the Boonwurrung and Vakul And we went through the record and found that Burrunan was a name that was used to describe dolphins in 4 of the main dialects in the Kulin Nation. So I thought it was an absolute perfect name, and went through those processes to be able to get the formal approvals to be able to use Burrunan Dolphin as its name. So really super special. So what do we know about the Burrunan dolphin? So if we look at the other species, we have the common bottlenose dolphin. Now, in our area, these guys are big 3-meter, tank, dark, robust animals that are found out in Bass Strait. But you can see here in the light blue that their distribution is all around the globe, tropical to temperate, inshore, offshore. Our Indo-Pacific bottlenose dolphin are restricted to those warmer waters of the Indo-Pacific region. Now, our Burrunan dolphin are only found in southern and southeastern Australia. So via the research that we've been able to do in genetic confirmation from other areas, we know that we have populations here in Victoria. We have populations down the east coast of Tasmania, across into South Australia in the Gulfs. And we've actually very recently had a genetic confirmation of Tursiops australis over in Esperance in Perth, which is really exciting. But I guess one of the things is when you look at the distribution, they are still restricted to a very, very small corner of the earth. So what do we know about the dolphins here? We have 2 resident populations, one in Port Phillip Bay and one in the Gippsland Lakes. Now, there is really, really small numbers of these. We only have 120 resident dolphins in Port Phillip Bay and only 65 resident dolphins in the Gippsland Lakes. Now, you would think that there might be some migration going on between those 2 populations, but in fact, at 0.04 of a migrant per generation between these 2 populations. So these are incredibly small and isolated populations, which is actually characteristics of the whole species. So the South Australian populations are very different to the Victorian populations. So how do we know all of this? Well, we go out on our research boat here, Kirby, and we do these boat-based surveys across all multiple seasons, across multiple years, and collect a whole bunch of different data. Now, obviously, Port Phillip Bay is quite big. So what we do is we break Port Phillip Bay down into numerous different survey zones. And within those survey zones, we do these line and zigzag transects to be able to cover the area and look out for these dolphins, which of course, this is what we're aiming to find, a nice big pot of dolphins. But many people say, a dolphin's a dolphin's a dolphin. They all look the same. How do you know that there's only 120 in the population? Especially when you come across a pod like this where they all just look the same. So what we do is actually collect photographs of the dolphins and their dorsal fins. Now here you can see that the dolphins' dorsal fins are all very different. There's unique nicks and notches along the trailing edge of the dorsal fin. And that allows us to identify each and every dolphin within our population. And each of those dolphins get a catalogue number. And then it sort of acts like an outward fingerprint. So when they break the surface of the water, we can collect these photographs. Now, really importantly, we are able to use this data to do things like our population assessments. So we can track our mums and the success of our mums through time. So how often are they calving? Are they successfully, having their young? And that can tell us about the attrition rate and the success and the turnover rate of the population. Importantly, what we're trying to do is flatten that curve like we're doing currently at the moment, but in the opposite direction. So we want to be able to go out on survey and know that we've captured, photographically captured all of the individuals within our population. And then that way, when we're doing that, we're not discovering, too many more on each of our surveys. We can undertake robust population modeling, which can then tell us whether the population is declining over time, whether it's stable or whether it's increasing. Now that's all good and well, and you know, we can go out on our surveys and say, you know, this is a dorsal fin here, this is GL10411, this is Jimmy. So some of them get nicknames because it's a bit hard to say, oh, this is 10411 and it's hanging out with 10362 again. You know, the numbers can get a bit confusing, especially when we have these big, you know, these catalogs. So sometimes they get little nicknames. So this is Jimmy Fornick. And Jimmy has the 4 distinct nicks that you can see there. Now, we've been researching Jimmy in the Gippsland Lakes, or I have since 2006. So we've got a pretty good idea of Jimmy. Now, in 2013, Jimmy had a calf, who we now know as Finn. So you can see Jimmy here swimming alongside Finn. And much like me with my birthmark that I was born with, Finn was born with this little skin lesion or a birthmark there. So we've been able to track that Finn's progress until Finn got such time that Finn actually got nicks and notches on his dorsal fin. Then we were able to, one day, Finn did a nice big leap out of the water, and we were able to sex Finn as being a male. And you can see the lesion bump. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the lesion bump there on the top of its body. So now, just through using those photographs, we know that Jimmy successfully calved Finn. Finn's now reaching the point where he's actually getting sexually mature, and as are the other calves that were born in 2013. So it might be that this is the first time in the Burrunan, you know, scientific history that we're actually able to track a calf all the way through from when it was a calf to when it had its first calf. This is Ricky. So for those, I saw that there's a lot of people joining us from the Bayside area. So Ricky is called Ricky because she was first seen off of Ricketts Point. And so she's one of our main female dolphins in Port Phillip Bay. And we've been tracking her again since I started my PhD in 2006. And we've been able to have a look at her calving record too. And really excitingly, she only just recently had her latest calf. So we're now able to track through her previous calves and then also these new ones. Now this is Lucky. So Lucky got the name. You can see the markings down the side of Lucky's body here. And these are actually from a vessel strike. So we call Lucky Lucky because she was really lucky to survive that interaction with these vessels. And this is one of our latest dolphins that we have named. And in recognition of the National Reconciliation Week, we're really proud to work with the Burrunan elders to be able to name this very special dolphin. And as you can see with this one, again, it has these boat strike marks across the front of the dorsal fin and down through its body. You know, and it has actually recovered from these significant wounds. And so the elders have been able to name this dolphin Weeagoon Dullabup, meaning live dolphin, to celebrate its fighting spirit and history, which is really fantastic. Now, we've been introduced to a number of different dolphins here, and these all form what we call a social alliance. So they form these really tight-knit associations, and so we're having a look at how that impacts our population as well. And Miranda is having a look at this as a part of her research program. And you can see here in the blue, we have a little cloudy cluster, and these are actually our females. And they have a much more fluid social network. And we've actually been able to figure out that the females hang out with other females with dolphins of the same calving group. Whereas in the red there, you can see there are smaller clusters. So these are our males, and our males hang out in these really long-term associations and are really small, tight associations. So we've had dolphins that we've been tracking since 2006, and they're always seen together. And some of them show high site fidelity or only seen in particular regions of the bay. Now, having a look at the dolphin distribution, we're using the bay here as an example where we have a look at the geospatial mapping. And we can have a look at these heat maps to find out how the dolphins are using bay and then how those change with seasons. So where are they using the bay across different seasons, and then correlate that to things like fish runs to be able to have a better understanding of how the dolphins are using the bay. Breaking that down even further, you can see all these little squiggles here. So these are what we call our focal follow tracks. So when we find our dolphins, we do a focal follow, and then we break those further down into what they're doing in that particular region. So are they feeding? Are they resting? Are there calves in the group? Is there mating behavior going on? And in that way, we can actually, you can see two different tracks here, and this is in the Gippsland Lakes, where the blue track, they were just on a consistent travel. Whereas the red pod here did a bit of fast travel, and then they did a little bit of resting or milling behavior, and then there was a little bit of social interaction. And in this way, we can identify areas of significance. Are they feeding around areas of seagrass? Do we need to better protect those seagrass areas? So we're able to have a look at their behaviors and correlate that with areas of significance for the dolphins. Now, one of our main goals is to have a look at the threatening processes to these very small populations. So Chantal, our PhD student, is having a look at marine toxicants, and we've heard a lot about this lately in terms of all of the runoff that's going into our bays and waterways and the level of toxicants within our environment. So Chantal's having a look at, through her PhD with RMIT and us, is what are the toxic burdens of these top order marine species? What is the bioavailability of these toxicants? How are they accumulating and biomagnifying through the food chain up to our top order predators? And she's really using some new exciting gene expression biomarkers, and was fortunate enough before we all got into lockdown to go over to Portugal and work with some amazing researchers over there to bring new gene expression techniques back to Australia to really investigate this area. One of the other areas we're having a look at is the acoustics. So dolphins use sound for navigation, for communication, to locate their prey, for social cohesion, and for individual recognition. And so we're having a look at what we call the acoustic repertoire. Now they have a whole bunch of different sounds, from whistles and squeaks and squawks, and sometimes they sound like a bunch of nanas chattering under the water to buzzing through echolocation. So I'm going to try and play these videos and see if you might need to turn your volumes up to hear them a bit, but you'll be able to follow through with the spectrogram. So you could hear in that video some and some buzzes and those sorts of things. Now we're also having a look at the impact of vessels. And so in this video here, spectrogram, you'll be able to see that you've still got those peaks of the whistles, but then halfway through you can see a vessel coming through and masking that sound. So you can see here with that situation is that you can still see that the dolphins are communicating, but it's masked by the recreational vessels, which actually work at the same frequency that the dolphins do. Now, I guess one of these things while we're all in lockdown, one of the benefits for a scientist, I guess, is that, it's very rare that you get the opportunity to say, hey, listen, if everybody could just stay off the water for a couple of months so we can do this controlled experiment about what a marine soundscape is like, that'd be great. But COVID, I guess, in these times has given us a really unique opportunity to have a look at how the soundscape has changed. So we've had, oops. Just stop that and that one. So we've had these sound traps, these passive acoustic monitoring stations that have been deployed in numerous locations. And what these sound stations do is record the marine soundscape for 5 minutes in every 20 minutes for 24 hours a day for months at a time. So it's like we're doing an underwater eavesdropping on these dolphins. And really importantly, we're able to find out, what they're doing at night or on days like today where we can't get out on the water, because they don't go and tuck themselves off into bed. They actually are active 24 hours a day. And so for the first time, we're able to actually listen out for our dolphins on that 24-hour basis. And as I said, importantly, during these COVID times where we actually haven't been able to get out in our boats on the water, how does the marine soundscape change when we're all locked in our homes, which is really exciting. Talking about the vessels, we're also having a look at the threats. We already introduced you to Lucky, and you can see there in the picture, and also Dallabutt. We have a number of dolphins in our populations that have been hit by vessels. And so one of our main things is trying to communicate and educate people about their interactions with dolphins. So if you're on a jet ski out on the water, you're not to approach dolphins and whales within 300 meters. And if you're on a vessel, whether it be powered or unpowered, including stand-up paddleboards and kayaks, you're not to approach dolphins within 100 meters. And that allows the dolphin to actually have the choice to be able to bow ride. And you'll see in some videos coming up that when they do have the choice and it's on their terms, you get a really great interaction. Now, our science is not just for science sake. We've been able to have, with the knowledge that we've gained from our research, have the dolphins listed as endangered under Victoria's Fauna and Fauna Guarantee Act, based on those small numbers and the number of threatening processes impacting these small populations. But further to this, we've been able to use our research to be able to be involved with the remaking of the marine wildlife regulations, and also to have the Burrunan dolphin listed as an asset and a value to Victoria's marine coast, which is really fantastic. So that's all about our Burrunan dolphins, our amazing, unique and iconic species to Port Phillip Bay and Gippsland Lakes. But of course, we have so many other amazing marine mammals in our backyard. And just for the last little bit of the presentation, I just want to talk you through some of the other really cool things you can see out on the water. Now here in the globe general, we have 129 different marine mammal species. And we break that further down into Australia. We have 55 different marine species that are found in Australian waters. Now, right here, a lot of people will sort of have a look at those and think, oh, there's so much more diversity in the warmer tropic areas. But we actually have 38 different marine mammal species that have been noted in our marine mammal record that Chantel worked on as a part of her honours degree. Sorry. And so what we do is break those down into, say, our whales and dolphins, and we have our baleen whales or our mysticetes, and these are things like our humpback whales and our southern right whales, and the largest living animal on earth, the blue whale, and these are filter feeders, and they use their baleen plates. We also have our toothed dolphins, or our odontocetes, and they're our dolphin species, things like sperm whales and killer whales. So what I wanted to do is introduce you to some of the species that we find out here in Port Phillip Bay and along our coastline. Now, first is the zippy little common dolphin, Delphinus delphis. Now, these are only 1.5 meters, so they're a bit smaller than the Burrunan dolphin, and you can see the patterning is really different. So they have that gold patch on the side of their body, they have that really long, slender rostrum that's dark, and a triangular dorsal fin. Now, these are found across the globe and across coastal Victoria. Here in Port Phillip Bay, we have a sort of a community of dolphins around about 30 in size that hang off between Mount Martha and Mount Eliza Mornington area. And these are the dolphins that you might see, not the Port Phillip ones, but the common dolphins in general, in those big superpods that you see like on YouTube or Facebook videos where thousands and thousands of dolphins are all surging through. Now, another really cool animal is our Australian fur seal. Now, these are the largest of all of the fur seal species, with the males growing up to 2.5 meters in length and 350 kilograms. So these are really nice, big, robust dolphins, seals. So you can see here, and these seals need to haul out, so they don't stay in the water all of the time. And for anybody who's been down to Chinaman's Hatch, you can see these seals, which is where this photo was taken, hauling out for their rest. Now, if you're really lucky, sometimes on our surveys, we actually also see what we call mixed species associations. So here's a little video that we collected, and you can see the zippy little common dolphins here that love a good bow ride. And then you can see a cheeky little Aussie fur seal who's doing his very best to be a dolphin. You can see the dolphins here bow riding, and that little cheeky fur seal swimming alongside which is pretty unique. Every time we go out on the water, we see something very different, and to see a bow riding seal was pretty cool that day. Now, another animal that we see in our waters, marine mammal, is a humpback whale. Now, humpback whales are not resident to the area, obviously. They do that migration from the colder waters of Antarctica, where they do their feeding, through to the more warmer waters of Australia for calving and mating. And so we can see these guys in our backyard in Port Phillip Bay and along our coastlines, usually during sort of June and July on their migration up. And then around September, October on their migration back down to Antarctica. These guys are about 18 meters in length, and you can see they have those really long pec fins that they like to slap around on the water, if you've seen those sorts of videos. Now, again, on one of our surveys this year, we were really fortunate enough to sort of, I guess, be mugged by a subadult humpback whale. So I'll show you this little video. We're out on survey and we're actually with a pod of Burrunan dolphins and some seals. And this subadult humpback whale popped up right next to the boat. So we disengaged, as you're supposed to do, and let the humpback whale do what it wanted to do. And fortunately, I guess it's an amazing experience for us. It just kept doing donuts of the boat and was really checking us out. And again, it's really important to stress that, you know, not to approach whales within 200 meters when you're on a vessel. But if you do come across them, to ease back and let the animals have that interaction if they want to. Another whale that we see along our coastline is the southern right whale. And again, this whale migrates to southern and southeastern Australia during this time of year. And they can be more often seen off of places like Warrnambool and Portland. But they've been seen outside of Port Phillip Bay, inside of Port Phillip Bay, from Phillip Island through Lakes Entrance. And you can see these guys are a bit different with their pec fins, in that they have this really paddle-shaped pec fin. And the white callosities on the side that you can see there are used to be able to identify each of the different individuals. Now, I really wanted to just talk about our impact. Obviously, that's one of our main areas of focus at the Marine Mammal Foundation, and we spend thousands of hours on the water doing our amazing work. Sometimes I think I'm like one of the luckiest people on the globe that I get to do this as my job. But unfortunately, we do spend so much of our time picking up litter and waste and marine debris from our areas, from plastic bags, chip packets, water bottles. We see entanglements of our amazing animals, such as the Aussie fur seals. And unfortunately, I've had to undertake a necropsy on a deceased. This is a Stenobradinensis that actually had its stomach compacted with plastic bags. Now, that's something we're doing to these species. They're not choosing that fate. And as you can see in this graphic, plastics don't actually, disappear. They just break down into smaller bits of plastic, which become then more available within the environment through the fishes that then get eaten by bigger fishes, through to our dolphins and through to us. So what we try and do is have this holistic and engaging approach to really inspire appreciation of our amazing, how lucky we are to have something like the Burrunan dolphin and the zippy little common dolphin and these fantastic whales in our backyard, to really foster that connection, to rethink our overuse and our over-reliance on plastics. And we really believe that education and that empowerment is key. And one of our main goals with our Marine Champions program, and they see that, our young people see that as being one of the biggest threats to our marine environments. And they've developed this fantastic Sustainable Steps guide, which they can then take to their schools to be able to mitigate and minimise the risks within their school and their community. So this is just one of the initiatives that we have with the Marine Mammal Foundation that we really hope makes a difference. Now, on that note, I just wanted to share one last really beautiful video that we took during the COVID lockdown, when we actually got the approvals to go out in this very clean and beautiful environment that we have. And if you pay close attention, you might even be able to see Burrunan Dolphin in this video. Pretty amazing when you get that kind of interaction, and who wouldn't want to, you know, do everything that you can to be able to protect this unique and iconic species. Oops. So ways that you can get involved: you can adopt your very own Burrunan dolphin, and that helps us get out on the water and do the research that we do. I notice there's a lot of people that live around the coast, and when you do see dolphins, we'd really appreciate that you jump onto our track and web page and be able to log your sightings. You know, whilst we would love to be out on the water all the time, it's not always possible, particularly under these arrangements. But if you're out on your 1 hour walk, 5 kilometres from home, if you're in Melbourne Metro and you see dolphins, we would really love for you to jump online and help us put those dots on the map as to where we're seeing them. We are a small not-for-profit organisation, and I thank the people that have donated today. Really, everything goes a long way with our small organisation. And if you want to learn more about what we're doing in the foundation, you can jump onto our webpage and check out our Virtually Marine Mammals series, which is also really nice little short videos to better explain what we do at the foundation. And with that, I'd like to say a massive thank you for joining me on this Sunday morning, and to MESAC for inviting me along to be a part of this Science Week, festivities. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Kate. That's fantastic. We can all give her a clap. Yeah. Thank you. Beautiful, Kate. Thank you. So we have some questions here. We've had one young man who's been very, very patient. Darian, how new are the dolphins that we're talking about?
So the dolphins are new to science, but not new to the area. So the dolphins have been living in Port Phillip Bay and Gippsland Lakes. Obviously, so the recent genetic evidence suggests that the Burrunan dolphin split from the other two species around about 1 million years ago, and that was time calibrated. But obviously, Port Phillip Bay and Gippsland Lakes didn't exist 1 million years ago, so these dolphins would have infilled when suitable habitat became available. So we're having a look at those evolutionary processes. So the dolphins have been here for quite some time. Yeah,
beautiful, Kate. And it's amazing that you've now found that one. Was it one particular dolphin in Esperance, or was it a number of them?
So it was a number of them with the genetic samples that were collected, and so it's a bit of a different program going in that they're not doing the FinID with the genetics samples are being collected. So I want to see photos of them, and I've been now searching the YouTube channels to see what they look like.
Absolutely. There's a message from Kelly. How are we able to go down and do the research? Do you need permits to do that?
Yeah, so we work under very strict animal ethics and permits and scientific permits. So we're actually allowed to approach the dolphins closer than is prescribed by the normal vessel, and to undertake our research. And I saw that there was something during the lockdown as well, in that, yes, we had to get special permissions to obviously be outside of our area and on the research. The worst thing, I guess, that could happen for us is that if we have we've got this fantastic now longer term data set and gaining all of this information, and if we can't actually get out on the water, we're missing large components. We don't have that continuity. So we've been able to, thankfully to this point, stage 4 has been a little bit trickier, as you could possibly imagine.
Definitely, Kate. And so does that mean you can actually get into the water with them?
No, we do all of our research based on the boat. So we don't, we never get in the water with these dolphins. They're wild animals. So we try and be as minimally invasive with our research as we can, and we only approach when we need to collect the photographs. And then for the most part during the focal follow, we will sit back at that 100 meters and collect that data. So we're trying to minimize our impact on the species as much as possible.
Yeah, and not to have them feel very comfortable with human beings around them.
Right, and anytime we see any level of disturbance in their behaviour, then we will suspend that and go off. The last thing we want to do is be an impact ourselves.
Yeah. So when you talk about disengagement, you mean turning your engine off of the boat?
In some cases, if they're just sort of milling or chilling in an area, we can disengage the engine and just sit there, so our impact is minimal. But in other times, we will actually leave the pod if we see any signs of disturbance. It's very minimal with what we do. We're very careful with how we undertake our research.
Yeah. So with the boat engines being a similar frequency to their clicks and their whistles and so on, does that cause problems for them?
And this is what we're trying to investigate, is what the impact is on the vessels to their communication. We can anthropomorphize up and say, when you go out to a pub or a really noisy restaurant or something, and you can't hear the person next to you because the noise is so loud, and it's quite exhausting. Or you imagine if you're trying to rest and there's a truck out the front of your house constantly beeping its horn or something, you're not getting, it could impact on those core biological activities of the dolphins. We have a paper that's soon to come out, having a look at the changes of the behaviours with these vessel interactions.
Yeah. And so with things like seismic testing?
Yeah, that's a great question with the seismic testing. There has been other research on the larger whale species, but with the populations of in Port Phillip Bay, I saw a question there about Western Port Bay. So there's the dolphins that hang out sort of in that Summers area that come in quite close to shore. You can see them swimming with things like the horses. They're also the Burrunan Dolphin, and they're the genetic stock type of Port Phillip Bay.
Beautiful. So some other questions. Do dolphins have a sixth sense like sharks? That's from Rebecca's daughter.
In terms of their brain is quite large, and I think that there's still a lot of research going into the cognition of the species. But the fact that they use sounds to be able to locate their food and navigate, they are super intelligent.
Absolutely. Is there a way that you can tell, this is from Rebecca as herself, or it might be a different Rebecca, is there a way that you can tell the difference between male and female dolphins?
So not morphologically, as you can see here, we can have a look at them based on the mother-calf association. So in that last video, you could see the calf was hanging, towards the back of the female. So when we have a look at those, if you're finding dolphins that always have that mother-calf association, then you can assume that that's the female. If they turn over, the GoPro footage that you saw earlier in the presentation has been an amazing tool for us, because we can just put the GoPro on a stick under the water and it's not actually getting in with them. And if they swim past, we can actually take a snapshot of their dorsal fin, as you could see in that video. Then they can turn over, and then we can have a look at their sex by the nether regions, I guess you can call it.
And the babies actually drink milk, don't they, from their mums? And
so they're mammals. So they, so the calves will go down into the position underneath, and the mother has these mammary slits, and so she squirts milk out, and the calves actually have this. They curl their tongue. So for everybody can stick your tongue out and curl it. I know that's like a human genetic thing. Some people can, some people can't. And then they have feathering on their tongue to be able to catch the mother's milk.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. So a question from Jono about the corner inlet samples. So we have actually managed to get some surveys out from the Wilson's Prom area to have a look at these migration and different species. So we're actually able to find only 11 dolphins down there at that time, and we had confirmation that they were Burrunan, but they weren't any of the ones that we knew. So that's a really exciting development. We're hoping to get some more funding to be able to do a bit more of a dedicated research down in the Wilson's Prom area.
Excellent, thanks, Kate. There's a lot of questions there. Can you can actually see them?
Yeah, I've just been able to turn
the chat. Yeah.
The chat on. So the Burrunan was officially recognised as a distinct species in 2011. And since then, we've been trying to find out more. It's really the tip of the iceberg with these species.
Excellent. So can you indicate any management strategies at the moment or in the future that you haven't mentioned yet? So things that might be coming up. That was
I think one of the big things that we really need to have a look at is these marine mammal protected areas. So at the moment we have marine protected areas, and what we're trying to figure out is, are there regions of significance within the bay and the Gippsland Lakes that host these small resident populations that the dolphins frequent more often than other areas? And are there places, we do have one in Port Phillip Bay called Ticonderoga Bay, and that's a dolphin sanctuary area. And so we've identified a number of different areas in Port Phillip Bay that these dolphins use more frequently than others. So whether we need to have a look at better protecting those particular areas in that vessels can't go in there, or if it's linked to seagrasses, then work with the people who are protecting and restoring shellfish reefs and that kind of thing to be able to better protect these environments. Because of course, the dolphins are the top order predator in the ecosystem, and they need a healthy environment to be able to thrive.
So we have the Ricketts Point Marine Sanctuary, and there's another two in Port Phillip Bay.
Yeah, and they love they come in really close if you're ever down in that Beaumaris. And the last season we were out during the winter, we had huge numbers of dolphins, huge numbers. I mean, for the population, but in comparison, in Port Phillip Bay, we tend to have the smaller groups of sort of 6 and 12s. But during the COVID lockdown, we actually were having pods of like 30 and 40 and mums and calves and coming really close into shore, and it was really amazing. Whereas Bron would know down in the Gippsland Lakes, we have, there's one main sort of nursery pod, so you might think you've only got a few dolphins, and then there's 40 of them, and they hang out in much bigger pods, and then the boys are quite separate. So different kind of strategies.
Thanks, Kate. There was also another question about the clicks and whistles. Mm-hmm. And so do you have an understanding of what they mean, and is it a distinct sort of language?
Yeah, this is a really amazing part of what we're now having a look at, is this what we call the acoustic repertoire. So they have this whole communication, and what we've been able to do on these focal follows is record using a hydrophone when we are actually out there. We put the hydrophone in under the water and we record the sounds at the same time that we're actually recording their behaviors. So we can say, right, well, we hear the zzz, the buzzing, and that's echolocation, and that's associated with feeding. Now, the other really cool thing is that dolphins have what we call signature whistles, and they become like the dolphin's name. And so in time, we're hoping to be able to isolate these signature whistles to particular dolphins. So in the middle of the night, if we hear a signature whistle, we can say, oh, that was, such and such's pod, and they were hanging out in this area. It's all very new and but really, really exciting.
Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. There was a question from Linda. What does it mean to list a local animal as an asset and value to the coast?
Yeah, this is a new initiative that also feeds into the Marine and Coastal Act, and it's really having a look at not only just the monetary assets in terms of tourism and fisheries and gas and oil, but also having a look at those intrinsic values and how we value the marine environment. The Burrunan is an asset because it's a top water predator of the ecosystem, but would we ever want to see a day where we couldn't go out on the water and see our amazing Burrunan dolphins? So So it's an asset to the bay that we need to be able to protect. And so the VEAC went through and had a look at not only just the actual monetary assets and the values we have on our coastline, but also what people get out of it, the joys and the intrinsic values. And the fact that the dolphin is small population numbers and is already endangered is an asset to our waterways, that we can actually go out and see it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kate. And then just a couple more questions to go. So Catherine is asking, how do you get your genetic samples?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do that in two ways, through stranding. So when a dolphin or a whale hits the beach, unfortunately, most of them are deceased. So we can collect skin samples and important scientific samples from those stranding events. But we also have a modified veterinary technique. So we don't ever catch the dolphins up. We fire out a biopsy dart. And that takes a 6x4 mil core sample of the skin and the blubber. The dolphins are free swimming. They have the sample collected, they swim off, we collect the biopsy dart. And then from that, we're able to get the full genomics. So the skin is halved in that sample, and I use the skin portion to do the genomics to be able to find out all of that genetic information. And then Chantal is using the other portion of the skin and the blubber to have a look at that genotoxicity. So we can actually see real time what the levels of toxicants are and the health and condition of the dolphins in real time, as opposed to waiting for them to die and hit the beach, because they're generally immune compromised by that stage. So that can give us a biased sample set related to the health.
Yep, lovely, Kate. Kim Liang was asking, what are their natural predators?
Unfortunately, their natural predators are us. We're the ones that are having the biggest impact on this population, as I said, with plastics and the thing that all of the stuff. It's estimated between around about 8 million metric tons of plastics are entering our oceans every single year. You know, it's a huge amount of plastics, and all of those bigger items then get broken down into those smaller microplastics, as we mentioned. Another predator, obviously, are other bigger animals like sharks. So one of our boys down in Gippsland, Bron will be very familiar with this one. Nemo is actually one of our transient male boys that come into the lakes, and he's actually missing his pec fin, hence why he's called Nemo, and he has the scar of a big white shark bite around that pec fin, and we've been able to get that ID based on that. So obviously a shark's tried to have a bit of a go at Nemo, and he's a bit of a tough male dolphin, so he managed to survive, but he just has like this little nub of a pec fin. That's
amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's still fine. And you showed that other photograph of the dolphin with a really big incision at that.
The vessels, yeah, unfortunately vessels are, and that's what we always try and get the message out about, the interaction and being aware of your presence when you're driving around dolphins. So we have a number of dolphins in our populations that have these the vessel markings and stripes, and entanglements are another big issue. You know, really thinking about how we dispose of our fishing gear and netting and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Kate. There was actually a question also about aggression and whether they have it within the group and different species. I've heard that they're actually quite protective of different species as well.
Yeah, so the you know, there's always those anecdotal reports of dolphins beating up on sharks and things like that. So the interspecies aggression. So we do have, like, our males can get quite beat up, so the males form these really tight alliances and associations, and you'll see the majority of our really well marked animals are actually our males. So there's a lot of I guess rustle tussle that goes on with mating, with dominance within the alliance, so they tend to be quite beat up. You know, we've seen during the mating process a lot of, you know, they can jaw slap and they rake at each other. So you can see dolphins that have these big scratches along the side, and that's actually other dolphins coming and biting at them. And that can be done as social play, like puppies, I guess, playing around when they're younger. But it also can be done with our males in that aggressive competition.
Yep, fantastic. Thanks, Kate. I think that's about all we have time for. We've gone over time.
Yeah, there's some great questions in there. So you can always jump on like to our Facebook page or send us a message with your other questions. But it's really great.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'd like to thank you very much, Dr. Kate Robb, for your wonderful talk and all the interesting facts about dolphins and marine mammals. Thanks to all the participants for coming today on a Sunday, spending your Sunday morning with us. We'll follow it up with an email and ask with a few more details and ask for your feedback on the talk and this morning. And please check out MESAC websites as well for our future events and the beautiful nature diary that's coming up. The link is in the email that I sent you. And finally, we'd like to thank MESAC sponsors, so Coast Care, Bendigo Bank, Beaumaris, and of course the Marine Mammal Foundation. Thank you all very much and have a beautiful Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks, Ray. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Tony. Thanks. See you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. I'll let them all log off. No, it's nice to say goodbye.